Chapter 4. The Boathouse. The boathouse had been Francie's favorite place to sleep when she was a kid, and her aunts remembered that. They must have known she would come back, too, because they'd obviously prepared it. The canoe had been taken out, the floor swept, the bed made up. Lying in the creaky bunk with the windows open, only inches from the water, Francie tried to recall her childhood wonderment. But instead of feeling the magic of wind and waves, what she noticed was the insistent drone of mosquitoes on the other side of the screens, the scratching of a mouse somewhere, and the fading sound of a boat motor. Every so often there was a fizz, then a pop or a series of crackles. Far away fireworks before the 4th of July. Beyond all that was a deep and empty silence. No horns honking, sirens wailing, whine of tires or clank of garbage trucks. No crashing of bottles in the alley dumpster at 2 a.m. Everything was utterly silent, so silent she could almost hear her heart beating. But no, of course she couldn't. Someone had once told her the story of the troll who had no heart in his body. Far, far away there is a lake, the story went. On that lake there lies an island. On that island stands a church. In that church there is a well. Inside that well there swims a duck, and inside that duck there is an egg. Inside that egg lies the troll's heart. Francie's heart was not tucked away in quite so complicated a way. She had long pictured it inside a small silver box, engraved all over in elegant swirling designs. It was a specific box, one she'd played with when she'd been a kid, her mother's jewelry box. At least, she had pretended it belonged to her mother. Francie knew enough about anatomy and reality to know that it was far too small to contain a heart, and anyway, it was impossible. But that's how she pictured it, her heart encased inside this beautiful box, untouchable. Sometimes she imagined just the box inside her chest, where her heart should be. Sometimes, when she felt particularly lonely, she felt as if the box with her heart inside was somewhere else entirely. A loon called, then another, closer. Creak of bed as she shifted, drone of mosquitoes, bing of moth on screen. Far, far away there is a lake, she thought the story could go. On that lake there is a loon, and inside that loon there is an egg, and inside that egg there is a box, and in that box there lies my heart. A breeze kicked up. She heard it first in the highest boughs of the pines, there in the ticking of the poplar leaves, and finally in insistent little waves pushing up against the shore. And then, bing, bing, bong, 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 bing, 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 bong, and so on. A wind chime. Ugh, what was the point of wind chimes? And this one was worse than most. Pathetically tuneless, music with brain damage. Bing, bing, bong, 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 bing. After 15 minutes of torture, she decided the noise must cease. She rose, slipped on her flip-flops, and stepped out into the dark. Except it really wasn't all that dark. The moon was up and almost full, or just past full. Francie wouldn't know. The moon was not something she often noticed in Brooklyn, but here, tonight, it was not to be ignored. She stood for a moment gazing at the lake where moonlight rolled out in a long, glittering carpet. She had a sudden memory of being in a boat with her father, dragging her hand in the water, trying to catch the moonlight, but it eluded her. Always, just out of reach. The boat plunged on, the path of light continuing to retreat in front of her. Bing, bong, bing. Where was the blasted thing? Bong, bing, bing. Next cabin over, she started through the woods to the neighbors. Here the moon had been cut into abstract shapes and laid on the ground in fanciful designs. Francie had an impulse to play hopscotch on the bright patches, but reminded herself that she was sneaking to the neighbors. She tried to move quietly, but her flip-flops slapped her heels, sharply punctuating each step. It didn't seem like the cabin was occupied, although through the trees she glimpsed what looked like a boat tied to the dock. But it was hard to know if people were here or not, since there was no driveway and no car. The tubes of the chimes gleamed in the moonlight, and she was happy to see she could easily slide them onto a convenient little shelf under the roof. The Olsons, did they still own this place? Might even think the wind had pushed the chimes up there. Now the only sounds were the soft lapping of waves against the shore and the wind high up in the pine boughs, making a soft whoosh. And what was that? Another sound, somewhere distant, although she couldn't tell from where, caught her ear. A harsh, metallic, rhythmic ka-chink. Chains? A boat winch? A car radio with just the bass audible? Whatever it was, she could only hear it when the wind lulled. She strained to listen, but a movement, caught out of the corner of her eye, distracted her. Something seemed to have stepped into a shadow. Deliberately? It was big enough to be a bear or a man. A sudden chill cut through her thin summer nightgown. Which would be better, she wondered, bear or man? She remembered that the bears around here were black and small and weren't supposed to be dangerous compared to, say, a grizzly. That knowledge didn't seem to have a calming effect on the goosebumps that had risen all over her arms. All the way to the boathouse, she told herself it was nothing. The strange sound could have been frogs. Frogs made all kinds of bizarre racket, chirping, croaking, quacking, peeping, and for all she knew, ka-chinking. And the crunching of pine needles behind her? Her imagination, for sure. Even so, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her, and the back of her neck prickled. Some detective I make, she thought, scared of the dark. Back in the boathouse, she settled into her creaky bunk and waited for her breathing to resume its normal pattern. Now the wind chime was silent, but the fireworks continued. There were distant pops, bangs, and occasional fizzes as the fireworks wound down. A couple of big speedboats went by. One of them was Sandy's. She smiled because she hadn't lost her talent identifying boats by their sound. It was a skill she'd developed as a kid. Her dad used to tease her that she couldn't tell the difference between the call of a chickadee and the chirr of a red squirrel, but she could identify any motor on their side of the lake. There was one loud pop, like a truck backfiring. I hope that's the last of the fireworks, she thought. Then, blessed silence.